What is going on, everybody? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And in this video, I'm joined by a great friend of mine and a contributor to the brand Big Blue Avenue, Sam Cardona, one of our two co-hosts this season. Sam, thank you so much for joining today. How have you been? It's been a while.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me again. Yeah, it's been a while ever since I left to start a new job, but I've been waiting to get back into this, and I think we have some really awesome and interesting topics to go over today, so I'm stoked.
And now that we're in off-season mode, we're going to be working more collaboratively together on these videos and whatnot, going over draft prospects, going over free agency moves, and I'm really excited to talk about that. But before we dive into today's topic, make sure to go check us out on all of our social media platforms. You can see scrolling across the ticker below: Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. Really appreciate all the support we've gotten, and of course, our new sponsor, as you can see, BetUS. We're proud to announce our new partnership with them, America's favorite sportsbook, serving customers for 25 plus years. You can bet on all your favorite sports. You can use our promo code below, JOIN125. I'll put it there for now as well, as we have that ticker scrolling. A 125% sign up bonus that you could receive up to $2,500. Bet on the go, bet anytime, anywhere on your mobile device. Get fast payouts and enjoy live betting where you can bet during the game for the early and best lines. That's BetUS, where the game begins. So thank you very much to our sponsor. And Sam, I'm really excited to dive into this topic because you and I have been kind of talking back and forth about this for a few days, and the heat is beginning to steam up about Daniel Jones, the Giants unlikely to pick up his fifth-year option. So tell me, what are you thinking about this, and do you think it's the right move by the organization?
Honestly, I mean, this entire season, we've been talking about this, right? Like, it's literally been, is Daniel Jones our guy? Is he going to be here for, as long as Eli Manning was? And honestly, I really think that, I mean, even last year we said, last season was his quote unquote last year to prove everything. And then there was a bunch of things that kind of get thrown in, wrench in the gears. Like, he's had a lot to deal with over the past 3 years. Going into his fourth year, I think this is the actual time he has to prove. He has to prove that he can overcome everything that's happened these past 3 years, but obviously hasn't been the best quarterback for us. We have been on the Daniel Jones train for a long time. We're supportive of him. We want him to do well. But I honestly feel like this might be a better option for the Giants to not pick up his fifth year option, because what if this year is another disaster? What if this year is just not good at all? If he does do well, then, we'll take it from there. But I can't risk him going into this year having a similar year to what it was these past 3 years and just kind of go in confident that his fifth year is going to be quote unquote his year. At that point, you're not a rookie quarterback anymore. 5 years in, you should have figured it out by now. But that's just my opinion.
I agree with you 100%. I think it's important too because that May deadline is where the Giants are going to have to make a decision. And this rumor started by Pat Leonard again. In the past, I haven't really, I'm not going to bash a reporter, but some reporters I tend to rely on, others I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I think Daniel Jones, you're right. He's in an interesting spot for me. Um, yeah, he's been dealt a raw card, yes, but he's yet to play a full 16 game season, now 17 with the 1 game extension for the regular season, and he's been hurt. He
Mm-hmm.
hasn't been available. That's the biggest thing for me. Um, Daniel Jones mentioned that Brian Dable, our new head coach, is seeking his input in developing the Giants playbook. That's great, but is that just for this year or is that for past this year? We don't know, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
Shane and Dable seem to be committed to Daniel Jones for the year 2022, but we don't know if that will be the case past the season.
Yeah. And I think that we can argue too that this draft, we shouldn't have to worry about, trying to pick up a quarterback in this draft.
Right.
There's really not too much QB capital this year. But possibly next year, when next year's draft rolls around, maybe that's when the time comes, or, but that's next year. We can't get too far ahead of ourselves here. But this, like, I feel like confidently enough, we can stick with Dan in this year, have him have a consistent coach and GM and offensive coordinator. I mean, he's gone through what, 3 or 4 offensive coordinators through his 3 years of being here, which is just in and of itself difficult, apart from him struggling. So I think that this is going to be good for us because, okay, now we know he's going to be the guy. We'll go into this year knowing Daniel Jones is our quarterback. New GM, new coach, can build around him. I know people are throwing in the Josh Allen stuff. Like, people are saying Daniel Jones is going to be the next Josh Allen now that Dable and Shane are here. I can't say that that's going to happen. I mean, we also see Josh Allen didn't become Josh Allen overnight. It took a few years for him to get to that point. But we saw the gradual improvement. I'm not seeing that same gradual improvement with Daniel Jones. So I believe his record is like 12-5 over the past 12-25 over the past 3
12
years.
and 25, yep.
Like, that's like, not the best margin to be working off of. So I genuinely think that that's just the fact that we don't even have to worry about whether or not we're going to draft a quarterback this year, because there really aren't that many. We can focus on all the other stuff we have to work on. But going in, knowing Daniel Jones is going to be the quarterback just for this year, I think is a little bit more confidence building than being shaky about it.
And building off that 12 and 25 record, let's put the numbers into perspective for the folks at home watching. So in 3 seasons, Jones has started 37 games. Now, granted, 2019, when he was a rookie, he didn't start the first 2 games. Eli Manning did. So you take those 2 games away, and what was it? 32 plus 17. We're looking at 49 games that he was eligible to play in. He's only started 37 of them. So during that time, he's completed just under 63% of his passes, 8,400 passing yards, 45 touchdowns, 29 picks, 12 of them coming his rookie season. And he's rushed for exactly 1,000 yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. And I think a lot of people got excited when they saw Daniel Jones take off to run the football, because Daniel Jones won his first career NFL start against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But that same season, 19 fumbles as a rookie and 36 fumbles in his first 3 years. So, he's limited the fumbles over the course of the past 2 seasons, but it's still not good enough. Shane and Dable have seemed to back him, but will they back him past the season? That's the question. And Joe Shane was asked Sam about this year's quarterback class, and he was saying, yeah, I did some scouting on them, and this was back on January 26th, so not too long ago. You never know when these opportunities are going to come to select a quarterback. So I did see most of these quarterbacks that are in this draft, he said. I did see them live at some point this year. From a film evaluation, I'd have to circle back, but I do have working knowledge of most of those guys. And again, he's probably going to get more knowledge this week at the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Daniel Jones heading into 2022.
I think it's also important to mention the fact that people will say, well, his offensive line hasn't been the strongest over the past few years, and which is totally valid. I think that our offensive line definitely is one of the weakest parts of our team that we need a lot of help with. But I think after this past season and seeing Joe Burrow and the Bengals get to the Super Bowl, I think that point is kind of void at this point, because we literally saw Joe Burrow win a playoff game after getting sacked 8-9 times and still being able to win. So I think that people will, and again, it's valid to say we have a weak offensive line, but I can't say that that's the reason why Daniel Jones is struggling as much, even though it is a factor.
No, and you can't really say that. But one thing I want to point out about Daniel Jones, he has heavily favored the slot receiver, and that includes a lot of underneath routes. And Daniel Jones is most accurate when he's throwing the ball deep or 10 or more yards down the football field. The problem is the offensive line and the playbook has not given him the opportunity to do so. Under pressure, Daniel Jones loves to find Kadarius Toney and against the blitz as well. You dump the ball to Tony, he makes people miss. On third down and in the red zone, he's loved to target Sterling Shepard, who, we talked about maybe a cap casualty. The Giants could save $4.5 million by releasing him, and plus he did suffer an injury, a bad one, late last season. So Sam, he relies heavily on high catch rate slot receivers like Shepard and like Tony, and some people are arguing Tony was brought in to replace Sterling Shepard
Mhm.
eventually.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I think that, like you said, he's favoring these things and he's comfortable with certain things that he just cannot do
Hmm.
because of the team that's surrounding him. So it's hard for you to build and get better when everything that you're trying to do to better yourself isn't working. So like it's also just the fact that he hasn't kind of learned to adjust to try and find a different strength, and that in and of itself is what's making the Giants as painful to watch as we've seen this past year, because we want to see that adjustment and he isn't, again, I know that he is still semi new to this, but now is the time that you need to start learning this and you need to start getting into the mix and adjusting to your team, because as much as you want to build around a guy, you can't do the entire team like that, especially if you're not winning.
100%. And it's going to be interesting to see what Daniel Jones is able to produce for the Giants in 2022. They're saying the neck injury should not be an issue
Mhm.
heading into the 2022 season, but we will see.
Mhm.
Next up, I know you and I both want to talk about our top cornerback on this team, James Bradberry, who did not play like our top cornerback this season. Could he be a cap casualty? Now, according to US or U Stadium on Instagram, I believe they mentioned that cornerback James Bradberry's future with the Giants is in doubt. And I kind of speculated this before I even read that report because he's entering the third year of his 3-year deal he signed in 2020. Like Daniel Jones, Bradberry has no ties to this new regime that's come in and Shane and Dayball. And he's owed a $21.8 million cap hit this year. And the Giants have already restructured his contract once, which means even though 2022 is the final year of his deal, he is a $1.36 million cap hit against the Giants in 2023 when he's not even under contract anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm feeling like it sucks that there are gonna be people that we have to cut because it's just the way that this team is working right now. And with Joe Shane coming into the mix, he said, we need to work this out, like taking pay cuts, cutting people, like it's just the reality of it. If James Bradberry goes, and we'll talk about Logan Ryan a little bit later, like it can't be both, because then this
Mhm.
this defense that is basically holding us afloat right now, that is helping us win games, is going to start to fall apart. And now that we've lost Patrick Graham as well, Wink Martindale is learning this new defense, this new system, which is great. But also, if you just start chipping away at the things that are actually really good about this team, then it's not going to be good anymore.
Mhm.
So I understand the cuts, and I think James Bradberry definitely could be a cap casualty. And I think that it is very possible that they end up, moving on from him. But like I said, we're going to talk about a little more. Like we can't lose him and Logan Ryan at the same time. It's got to be one or the other, and we really need to like make sure that these things are thought out, because again, can't chip away from a really good defense because then it's not going to be good anymore.
100%. Now, releasing Bradberry would save $12 million. Joe Shane mentioned he wants to save $40+ million or wants to shave off $40+ million this season.
Hmm.
The Giants are currently negative 12 in the cap, and that has to change.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cut casualties that are going to come, probably some players that you and I both like. Um, but the thing with Bradberry, he's 29, which that really isn't a problem for me. It is for some people for some reason. 29 years old, it's not that old in
No.
the NFL, especially for a cornerback. But the Giants secondary is getting younger. They signed Adoree Jackson. They drafted Darnay Holmes and Aaron Robinson this past year. And I think Adoree Jackson and Aaron Robinson, both of them in particular, are more better suited for Wink Martindale's scheme
Mm.
than James Bradberry is, who I think is much better in zone coverage. I don't think we'll be seeing too much of zone coverage in Wink Martindale's defensive scheme. It's going to be a lot of blitzing and a lot of terror. But I think Bradberry kind of got screwed by Dave Gettleman due to the restructure since last offseason. The Giants brought in all these prized free agents when they thought the team was ready to take the next step, but they weren't. So now Bradberry's cap hit is more this year because of Dave Gettleman's incompetency last offseason.
Yeah.
Because at the time they signed Bradberry, it was a good deal. It was a 3-year, $30 million deal. And now it's somehow it's a $21.8 million cap hit this season, and that is pathetic.
Yeah, definitely, and we definitely have to work on that, because you can't run and you can't make a team better and get all these guys that are going to make us a better team if we don't have any money. Like, it's unfortunate, but that's just kind of how it is. So I definitely feel, as an overall point, I definitely think that James Bradberry will be a cap casualty if we don't get rid of him.
I agree. I will say that I think he is gone.
Yeah.
I like him as a player.
Same.
I like him a lot, but due to financial reasons, he has to go.
Yeah.
And with the direction the team is headed. Now, next up, saving Captain Ryan. You see the pun I did there.
Love it.
So Logan Ryan, according to Pat Leonard, there are some people in the Giants front office that want to move on from Logan Ryan. Some people. We don't know who these people are. Christmas Day of 2020, the Giants signed Logan Ryan to a 3-year contract extension. So he is supposed to be on the team through the 2023 season. So he has 2 years left on this deal. And I think when we look at Logan Ryan, Jabril Peppers suffered a really bad injury last year towards the beginning of the season, and he was on a contract year. I doubt he's coming back. I think he's as good as gone, Sam. And the depth at the corner position is a lot more healthy than the depth at the safety position, because if we get rid of Logan Ryan and Peppers doesn't come back, you're looking at Xavier McKinney, Julian Love, and nobody else.
Yeah. And Logan Ryan has been almost like this defensive Swiss Army knife for us, and he really is a powerful force on this defense. And I love that we're pointing out the fact that he is a captain, and this is, losing James Bradberry is one thing, but you can't start chipping away at defensive captains too, because then it's like you said, like, who's left? Even Blake Martinez is in this defense, and he got hurt last year. How is he going to transition into this year? I definitely think that, I really hope that Logan Ryan doesn't go anywhere. I think that we keep Logan Ryan. I think that we, get rid of James Bradberry, because Logan Ryan really is somebody special on this defense and is a leader. And like I said before, he can move to that safety position. He can be a cornerback. He can be all these different things. And that's just an asset that I think is worth keeping and not one to get rid of.
And I know he was a Joe Judge guy as well. And, as you all know, big Joe Judge guy I am. And I get why the Giants moved on from him. I support that decision. I don't want them to completely eliminate what Joe Judge did in his 2 years here, especially on the defensive end of the ball. Logan Ryan, I'm so happy you mentioned Blake Martinez before, Sam. He went down with a torn ACL in week 3 of the season. Logan Ryan immediately became the green dot Mike on the defense, the best defensive tackler on this defense. Not only was he a team captain, he was also the Giants' Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. He was the voice of the locker room. He helped recruit Adoree Jackson, who was here to stay. And financially, it doesn't make sense to get rid of Logan Ryan. As much as we like him, if it financially made sense to get rid of him, we'd understand the business aspect, because that's what the NFL is about. Unfortunately, it's a business. It's not about who we like and who we don't like. Cutting Ryan would not clear a lot of salary cap. Ryan has $5.5 million of his $9.25 million 2022 salary already guaranteed. Another $3 million becomes guaranteed in 18 days on March 19th. So you're looking at $8.5 million of his $9.25 million salary guaranteed by March 19th. Why are you going to cut him at that point? It makes no sense. Now, if the Giants were to cut him now, before March 19th, they could save $3.75 million, but they'd absorb nearly an $11.5 million cap hit in dead money. They would eat $11.5 million. So I do agree with you, Sam. You have to keep Logan Ryan. You have
Yeah.
to. It doesn't make
Yeah.
sense. Get rid of Peppers, let him walk, cut James Bradberry, but don't mess with the secondary from there.
No. No, because like I said, he is an asset that I'm willing to pay for. He's somebody that like you said, it will save us some money, but at like not at nearly as much as it would for Logan Ryan, not James Bradberry. So it to me doesn't make enough sense to get rid of such a powerful part of our defense, a powerful leader, and save $3 million. It just that's not worth it on for me.
Like we're picking at cherries here, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
no good logical reason to get rid of him. But is there anything else you wanted to add on today's show about players the Giants should potentially move on from, or anybody you want to analyze?
It's like really unfortunate that there's some guys on this team that I think should go, even though they definitely like I like them. One of those people being Sterling Shepard. I mean, Shep's been around now. He's one of our veterans. He's one of our guys that has been around for quite a bit of time now. But the injuries, the lack of performance, the just overall like nothingness that has been coming out of him, and it's unfortunate because we love Shep, like we really do. But I would say like that makes more sense to me to save a cap space with getting rid of Sterling Shepard as opposed to Logan Ryan, who's actually performing.
Yeah.
Sterling Shepard, just again, I love the guy, I really do, and he's been an asset for us in the past, but I think holding on to him is going to hurt us more than keeping him around, in my opinion.
Yeah, Shepard would be entering his 7th year in the league. He's around 28, 29 years old now, and he has been riddled with injuries, not just this past season, but throughout his entire career. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of faces we're used to seeing that the Giants are going to move on from,
Mhm.
unfortunately, the reality of the situation. But
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see what happens, folks. Remember, BetUS promo code JOIN125. You can get a 125% sign up bonus up to $2,500. That is BetUS, America's favorite sports book. Proud to announce this new partnership. And Sam, I want to thank you for joining me today. It's been a while, and I hope we get to do more of these videos as we dive further deep into the off season. So that should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I feel so good getting back into this. It's been a while since we've been able to do this. So, yeah, hopefully you guys will see more of me on the YouTube channel and everywhere cuz I'd love it. And thank you so much, Tom, for having me on.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of that YouTube channel, folks, make sure to subscribe below to our YouTube channel at Big Blue Avenue. As you can see, we are also on Instagram and Twitter, posting daily updates revolving our beloved New York Football Giants. On behalf of Sam Cardona, I'm Tom Scavetta saying so long. And without further ado, let's go Big Blue.